Greetings, A Link to the Past randomizer fans, and welcome to another playoff match of the conference semifinals. This is between New Hyrule Order and Boomer Friendly. We've got on New Hyrule Order's side McMonkey versus Dawnventure. We have an interesting seed for you today. This is a hard mode, inverted mode, fast Ganon, assured swords, enemy shuffle, and full boss shuffle. I am Danny Music, and my co-commentator is Esmar. Esmar, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. You'll notice Sahasrabot is saying this is Enemizer casual all dungeons. That scratches the surface. The casual on its own, not being paired with boots this time, is a sort of rarely seen sight, but it does refer to the starting sword. So we are assured that sword. We will be finding some others, hopefully, before the game is over. And yeah, this is going to be pretty good. Boomer Friendly is currently up 2 matches over New Hyrule Order, but we're getting started, so we have the standard start here. So we have to run through the escape sequence.
All right, so with it being full enemy shuffle, having that heart container inside Link's house, not a sight that you're unhappy to see.
Yeah, in a standard seed, that would not be a very welcome item to see on the Uncle. But given that we have that sword, it's a little more of a sigh of relief to see those bombs. This room isn't too terrible this evening, which is good. This is sort of the first area where you can really have some improper enemy placements.
Seeing some pretty improper sprites from those guards.
Yeah, I'm sure that's just due to the the whole raining sequence is pretty sort of hard scripted in, and when you start moving things around, the sprites that are supposed to be there kind of get confused.
Mm-hmm. So with this being both standard and enemizer, the escape sequence is going to have to be done regardless of how rough the enemy layout is. If it's extremely rough, we could potentially see a very huge time disparity in when these runners exit, but so far we're in pretty much lockstep, and so far it hasn't been too bad. The real dangers start to happen once you get into the sewers, particularly the one with all the ropes and rats.
Yeah, in this early game, it's the narrow hallways, because certain enemies slash obstacles are not so easy to sort of navigate around, because a lot of them, with just the fighter sword, you can't damage some of the late game enemies at all. Lionels are a good example. Some of them aren't even enemies that you can damage, such as the long roller pins. So if you get those in a narrow hallway, you basically have to just damage boost. And sometimes you might not be equipped for that. About the friendliest I've seen this room in an enemizer.
Yeah, not exactly the hardest ball and chain guard fight there.
Yeah, and the sort of heavier execution in terms of combat is sort of one of the reasons that enemizer can be a strategic pick. When you're sort of selecting some of your settings for these matches. I'm not entirely sure on how the format works for these. I believe this is power matchup here. But
this is the round 4, so I believe that
are we not doing those anymore?
Yeah, I believe that each of them got to pick and counter pick settings. I'm not sure exactly how the progression came to be what this is currently.
Yeah, but regardless, that's one of the reasonings behind the picking the enemizer is you feel like it's sort of going to hamper your opponent more than it's going to help you. It's usually not a setting people choose to play into their own hands. It's generally something you hope is going to sort of eliminate an execution advantage that your opponent might have. For example, I've seen that reasoning done because it really can throw off some otherwise trivial set plays that people make in certain rooms.
Okay, so it was McMonkey that picked Assured Swords and All Dungeons, and Dawn who picked Enemizer.
Yeah, this is not the quickest room, but definitely better than most, I will say.
Yep.
Because there are a lot of enemies in that room, and that's a lot of chances for something really terrible to show up.
Yep, McMonkey got out of there pretty safely. Dawn has to be a bit careful here. Fortunately, the worst room is over, but you never know what could be lurking ahead. Dawn does have a slight advantage going out of Dark Cross room.
Yeah, and that's another thing that the Enemizer sort of throws into the mix is, you know, your adaptability. Sort of if you can reroute your strategies on the fly, be really adaptable in how you sort of approach these different room challenges and stuff. It's you can make up time in areas that are otherwise pretty set in stone. For example, this escape sequence. So standard is a lot different for the opening five or so minutes with Enemizer in play. Although, as I say that, both of our runners are here in lockstep coming out of escape.
Dawn played it very carefully in Key Rat's room and is rewarded by not taking a death there in an unfortunate spot. And both runners deciding to go up north this way to bomb the wall to the top, which is a good decision that avoids all the enemies that are in the way.
Yeah, that's... You almost always want to just do that in Enemizer, just given the chance that there's something you'd rather avoid between that bottom entrance and the top. It's just more consistent to do the top either way, and it doesn't really lose that much time.
All right, so both runners out of escape. No deaths, first try. Very, very good job there. That's the first major obstacle that they've
Yeah, and now the real fun
accomplished.
starts. Yeah, as I mentioned before, the otherwise trivial challenges are sometimes have a wrench thrown in them. The Kakariko checks are one of those. We'll be seeing that in a bit, but even some of these routes here in the overworld can become unexpectedly dangerous.
So we've got a map check on Dawn's side. Tower of Hera is the green pendant, and both Eastern and Desert Palace are the 1 and 4 crystals, respectively. Just a blue rupee on Aghanim, which is good, because Aghanim can also potentially be a dangerous dungeon. We'll see if it is or is not actually required by the seed.
Yeah, in all dungeons, you typically will prefer to do Aga 1 right at the end, but the seed can, of course, logically require it beforehand. It does need to be done regardless, so it's not as much of a time waste if you do it, quote, unnecessarily, but you'd still prefer to do it at the end just because that's the most efficient.
Yeah, it's certainly nice to be able to clear Ganon's tower, use the mirror, go beat Aghanim, then you'll get a full heal right before the Ganon fight.
Yeah. See McMonkey contemplating picking up that fish. If you maybe lesser known fact, a little Easter egg in the original game even. If you bring a fish all the way to the bottle vendor, he'll throw you a whole bunch of goodies. It can be a really nice thing to happen in Enemizer, depending on your loadout. Both of our runners here are pretty well equipped with what they need to clear out Kakariko here, though.
All right, so we are finding the flippers and a blue tunic in Blind's hut. That blue tunic especially welcome.
Yeah, that's going to give us a lot of peace of mind against some of the Dark World enemies that might show up. All right, so there's
Fairy
our
in a bottle.
That's nice to see before we leave.
Yep, can also check Sick Kid while you're in the area. Bee in a bottle. Still nice to have, I guess.
Yeah, if it's a golden bee, I don't know. I have always called it the golden bee. Where did that come from? Did I make that up? I can't tell. I think it's officially referred to as good bee, but
He might be golden in A Link Between Worlds.
it might also be from the because I played the Game Boy Advance port as a kid. Interestingly, the
Yeah,
Cuckoo
me too.
House has 3 Cuckoos in it. That's not usual in Enemizer. Yeah, we have some discontent in chat. Enemizer is not delivering on its promises so far. Everything's been fairly tame.
Fortunately, a Zero Death Chicken Hut, very nice. Didn't have to use that fairy in a bottle early. Well, the Sick Kid also has a bee. I mean, he does like his insects.
But how's he gonna catch them? He doesn't have the net this time.
Maybe he got him from the old man of the mountains.
All right, so we have a few seconds of relative calm before we hit South Shore, which is going to be the next big exciting Enemizer moment. And
Yep.
Now we head south, yeah.
Yep, we do see Dawn going south. No... I guess there's not really much of a reason to do a spicy play this early.
No, especially with since this was a standard seed, there's no question of whether or not you use the Uncle route. The only other play at this point is to go straight to Eastern Palace, which doesn't make much sense. Not with everything that's down here at South Shore.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too much exciting showing up here. So once the danger of that happening is once you end up with these South Shore checks getting exhausted. Most importantly here, the mini Moldorm cave. That's the last sort of big batch of in-logic checks. Again, a really tame mini Moldorm cave. Just the lone Helmasaur. But once these are exhausted, you sort of got a choice of where you go after that. We see McMonkey, though, a presence of mind, clearing out Agina here, and remembering that the bush crab has the red rupee drop, so is farming a little bit for the rupees here.
With having flippers this early and the flippers checks also being a kind of major hub destination to go to after Mini Moldorm, this could potentially pay off. In the meantime, Dawnvenure finds the mirror as well as the Master Sword in Mini Moldorm Cave.
Yeah, the mirror is a big find. It doesn't mean that much this early, but it's definitely a nice item to have for later. I really do like this play from McMonkey. Knowing that those rupees aren't going to take that long to farm up. Already there at Zora money. Doesn't need to find anything else. Can route all of that in really smoothly now. And has the Agina's cave check off the table now. Doesn't have to worry about that later.
Exactly. And even if Zora doesn't pay up big, just having that peace of mind will potentially help McMonkey's routing a lot more in the future.
And I think it is
Dawn
the play
finding
to make,
the mirror. Yeah. Dawn finding the mirror does make that better, though, because if you don't get Zora here, then you can potentially wait on Zora until you get Catfish.
Yeah, having mirror to check Catfish and then route that straight into the those North Flippers checks is pretty convenient. You don't always get the opportunity to do it. But at this point, it seems to me the logical play is you commit to these Flippers checks. They're all in logic, and because the other alternative is going to Sahasrarla's hut over by Eastern, and the only thing that it makes sense to combo that with is into an Eastern Palace dive. So you may as well give yourself as many chances as possible to get the items you'll need to clear the dungeon. In this case, importantly, we need the bow.
Yeah,
it's not the end of the world if you don't have the bow when you go in, but you don't want to go in and then find the bow in the Flippers checks.
Exactly. We haven't found a glove upgrade yet, and there are still so many other progression items that we could find that there's actually a decent chance that Zora will have something.
Yeah, because we're running out. We're running out of logical checks.
Waterfall Cave, unfortunately not the answer.
Yeah, that's not good for Dawn. Now it's even more likely now that that Zora might be the one thing we're looking for here.
Waterfall Fairy having fairies is nice, though.
By the numbers, it's still most likely in Eastern area, because that's a total of 6 checks. But Dawn really doesn't want something good to be on Zora here.
Okay, there's the Moon Pearl.
Again, it's not useful right now, but it's good to find.
One of our Dark World access items. Still looking for at least 2 more, either both glove upgrades or 1 glove upgrade in the hammer.
And notably, it's the first non-blue item that our runners have found today. Yeah, so we're going to want to pay attention to McMonkey when he heads up to check Zora. Meanwhile, Dawn is going to be showing us some new checks over in the Eastern Palace area. So most likely this is going to contain the progression that we're going to need to see. It could still be on Zora, but it's probably over here.
There's the lamp.
Yeah, that's just like chat was sort of speculating, lamp does put the Aga's tower climb fully in logic with that master sword.
Yeah,
and with the Moon Pearl showing up, it's really looking like that's gonna be hard required early either way. Just because of that. Because we don't have either of the other 2 items that we would need to gain Dark World access any other way. You'd need to find both a glove and the hammer in here, because there's nothing else you can really do with the mirror. Or, I mean, excuse me, the lamp. Just the lamp showing up.
Yeah, it looked like Dawn was considering just save and quitting right away to do Aghanim, but deciding to go into Eastern Palace first. very unlikely chance that this plays out, but if you do find something like one glove upgrade, that opens up access to Death Mountain, and with the mirror, you then have access to Tower of Hera as well. But at this point, it is looking like it would be an Agaseed. That being said, there's also not that much that we can do in the Dark World once we get there.
Single green rupee is not the treasure trove that we were promised here. In this situation, it does become a defensible play to skip Eastern for now and go straight to Aga. And I kind of think that that's kind of a smart play to make. The biggest risk is that, you find the hammer in here. If you leave the hammer in Eastern, it doesn't pay off to do Aga early.
Right. I can see a play to do Aga early, check Pyramid Ledge, go into Pod, see if it is bow locked, which in Enemizer it's likely will not be. And then if Pod doesn't pan out, then you have the mirror, so you can just mirror and then do Eastern anyway.
Yeah, I mean, given that we do have the mirror, I think doing Aga early is almost a demonstrably better play. I think the only wrench in that would be if the hammer shows up in Eastern. Just because that would allow you to go south immediately upon entry to the Dark World. You can't get much of anywhere else without another item. Maybe the hookshot showing up could change some things of your Dark World routing, but worst case scenario, you can check Eastern right away anyway, because you have that mirror.
Yep, exactly. But both runners are deciding to do Eastern now.
Yeah, and I get that play too. It's a safe play. You don't want to leave any stone unturned early. You don't want to leave some time on the table for your opponent to snatch away from you.
Yeah. If they find like boots, that would also probably help more than doing Aga early would have been. And there's that hook shot.
Yeah, so that hook shot is a nice item to find, honestly. That's right. I had entirely forgotten that bow-locked rooms are, I think, automatically taken out of logic in Enemizer. They specifically make any bow-locked rooms not bow-locked. So that's
interesting.
Bow-locked at Eastern and bow-locked Pod are no longer bow-locked. So the bow is nice to have for the boss. You don't have to have it, though. Yeah. So actually going Eastern here makes a lot of sense, because you can clear it. Still would make sense to go save and quit after finding that lamp and go to Aghanim's Tower, just because it kind of saves you some overworld movement. But it does make sense to go in here.
And Mothula, which is very fortunate for Dawn, because Mothula is one of the bosses that can be completed.
Full Enemizer. I always forget that Enemizer and Boss Shuffle are the same setting, because I so often consider them separate, because Boss Shuffle without Enemizer is a lot of fun, and Enemizer is not always a lot of fun. But yeah, Mothula is one of the few bosses that we can't kill. Actually, that hookshot is pretty important, because now if we find Argus in any of these dungeons, we can defeat him as well. So that's the one thing about the boss shuffle is all of a sudden you may well need an item to clear a dungeon. The important ones being Fire Rod or Bombos for Cold Stare, Fire Rod and Ice Rod for Trinex, and Hookshot for Argus. So once we see all of those items, then we know that all bosses are defeatable. If we're missing any of those items, then there's always the possibility that we get to the end of a dungeon and can't finish.
Yeah. Finding the hammer for Helmasaur is also nice, but not required.
Yeah, bombs will do the trick. He can juke you because bombs do take some time to explode. But here, Dawn is going to Aghanim's tower. Little unfortunate. You do hope that you can avoid doing this, but in this situation, you're missing the hammer and both gloves. There's really not much hope you can hold out. Interestingly, Dawn hasn't checked Agina's cave, but again, skipping it because there's no way that one item is going to bail you out. There's a possibility, I suppose, in Dawn's mind, that you do have Agina's cave and King Zora. But again, you'd be banking on both of those to be exactly what you need them to be, so.
Yeah. Aghanim's tower can sometimes be pretty dicey, but with blue mail and fairies, shouldn't be too much of a problem for Dawn to get through.
Yeah, you'd like to have something more than Master Sword, but that's what the vanilla game gives you, so you can't complain too much.
So really, the only difference between these runners that's significant so far is that McMonkey took the time to grind up in order to do that Zora check, whereas Dawn did not.
Yeah, and so Dawn has that time. But if we end up in a hunt scenario later, that's going to be checks that McMonkey does not need to make. So and that's the whole mentality behind those plays in the first place. You know, you have to decide if you take the time now, your opponent could save that time, but you're sort of covered. It's insurance, basically. You don't always have to take advantage of your insurance, but you know, life insurance policy is only any good if you're dead. But you know, if it happens, then you're covered. Basically, and I've seen that happen. I've seen lots of races where runners are thorough early on, and they end up with a much more convenient hunt later on because they did checks early on and routed them in well at the time, so they avoided having to route them in messily later on.
Yeah, that's always one of the things that makes routing this game so interesting. There's a certain risk-reward element of going for full completion versus going for dungeons and the only things that you absolutely have to do to progress.
Yeah, it's tempting to want to get maximum efficiency out of all of your checks all the time, but it's obviously more efficient to only pick up what you need. And speaking of risk-reward, there is no risk-reward involved in this boss fight. Both runners will have the exact same RNG seed for this Aga fight, so we'll have the exact same patterns here. Already 1 blue balls from Aga. Not optimal, but not too bad yet.
Yep.
2 is starting to get a little worse.
And in Enemizer and Boss Shuffle, Aga, Aga2, and Ganon are all consistent, and they don't get shuffled into random dungeons. Any other boss, fair game, though there are also certain logical rules that prevent certain bosses from appearing in certain arenas.
Yeah, the theoretical maximum of blue balls is infinite because you could never hit the boss at all, but if you never miss the boss, the maximum, I believe, is 15. Because the start of each 4-attack cycle is guaranteed to be an attack that can be reflected. The rest can all be blue balls. And I believe it's a 50-50 every time, so I believe the distribution would be a bell curve, if my off-the-cuff probability knowledge has served me well. Meanwhile,
that seems about right.
Pyramid.
Just 50 rupees, which, yep, Dawn will get. Still need to do that Zora check and still need to open up Pod.
Yeah, it's actually probably not a perfect bell curve just because the less blue balls you get, the fewer cycles you do overall. So it's probably skewed towards lower numbers. Higher numbers are less likely than lower numbers. But I digress. Dawn is going...
You got
almost
the
going straight to, yeah. That's an easy thing to forget. You can know, all the time you need glove, hammer, or flippers to do this check immediately upon entering the Dark World. And this makes sense because with the hook shot, you can get over to the west side. But if you only have the flippers, you do need to jump down earlier than you usually do, and it's really easy for muscle memory to take over.
And I like this play on Dawn's side, not going over to check Catfish now. Potentially wait on having the money for Zora before doing that.
Yeah, it would be pretty. It would be a pretty big time sink for just a single check because there's nothing over there that can be picked up.
Yep, a lot of the game is open at this point.
A nice presence of mind to not run right by Graveyard Ledge here.
Oh, also no glove for Catfish. Correct. My bad.
Yeah, you do need another glove over there. It's, again, sometimes in these odd scenarios, it's really easy to forget about items that you usually have by the time you're at a certain point in the game. And that's sort of one of the pitfalls of newer runners when they first start playing the game is they'll feel like they have a really good handle, and then they get one of those infamous curveballs, and they run into like, oh, I've never had to think about that little logical quirk before, and it's one of the reasons that Rando has such good longevity. You know, it doesn't get boring because there's always something you have never seen before. So as McMonkey is finishing up the Aghanim fight, Dawn is going to be checking this ledge here. It's a medallion.
Quake medallion.
Quake, yeah.
Quake medallion.
Could be important, could be completely worthless. But
still not getting a map check.
Yeah, we will need the cape anyway. Yeah, the map check is actually, I guess, slightly less important in all dungeons. You need to do them all anyway, so it's not as important to know which order you're doing them in, especially not just yet, where it's pretty obvious that your main thing is dive into the front of Skull Woods and then go into the Village of Outcasts and do Thieves Town.
Yeah, still potentially good to know which the Pyramid Fairy crystals are, or where the other two pendants are.
Yeah, the main difference in between all dungeons and non-all dungeons in that respect is basically that the map check is just sort of late game knowledge, you know, when it becomes relevant that you might have to check the ped, when it becomes relevant that you might have to go to Pyramid Fairy. At this stage, we're still sort of just following our chain of checks as efficiently as we can.
Get the magic powder from C-Shape House on Boomer Friendly's side.
Yeah, that does put the magic bat in logic since... Oh, no, it doesn't. We don't have the mitts yet. But if you do find the mitts, we don't need the hammer for that.
Pod and Skull Woods are the 5/6 crystals, and Swamp and Turtle Rock are the remaining pendants.
Ooh, 3 swords already. That's a nice thing to see in boss shuffle, especially.
Yeah, and 4 bottles.
Now we will probably be seeing some lag frames here in Thieves Town. There's usually a lot going on here, and even more so in Enemizer. Not much showing up in the front of Thieves Town.
Bombos medallion. That makes Cold Stare beatable.
Yeah, now we're covered if the boss here is Cold Stare, which actually, given that we have the mirror, I wouldn't be surprised if Dawn goes straight in there, because in Boss Shuffle, one of the quirks of Thieves Town is that you don't actually need to complete the whole dungeon to enter and fight the boss. So you can walk right in and see what you've got. And when you have the mirror, that's actually not a terrible play, because this is usually available early on, and you're going to be missing some items, so if you walk in and find out it's Trinex, hey, that's great. Mirror out, go finish the rest of the dungeon for items, come back when you've got both rods.
The boss is Vitreous. This is better than Vitreous would be normally, just because you can hide in the corners there.
Yeah, the one issue is that you can't use the damage boost strats, which sometimes make this fight a little bit safer.
Right.
Just because
and the other,
because a lot of contact damage.
Yeah. The other issue is those eyes do a lot of damage if you come in contact with them, but with the fairy situation that these runners have, I don't think they're in danger of losing.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, as safe as you are with fairies, they are slow. So, if he hadn't taken that hit, he would save, 5 or so seconds, which is not negligible time in a race scenario. You have enough of those, and a lead can vanish pretty quickly.
Okay, so with that 300 rupee pickup, I believe that means there's only one item left in the rest of the dungeon, and I think after this fanfare...
That was the second one we saw, wasn't it? Wasn't the first item the big key? First item, big key. Second was compass.
Oh, is there one more? Okay, then there are two more.
Then we have, well, I don't know which small key. I think we only saw one item in the front, though.
Yep, it was only one. Okay, 2 items left. Dawn electing to go back in.
Yeah, the danger here is that one of those 2 items is in the big chest. Given that I don't think we saw... Yeah, Dawn grabbed the key from the top, so we didn't see the small key in the front, so it's basically 1 to 3 that the small key is locked in the big chest anyway.
Yeah, well, if the item that's here ends up being useful, then they can get it.
Yeah, and we're missing too much, I think, to not finish the back of the dungeon just on the off chance that you can come back here later with the hammer. Not compared to the risk that, the hammer is completely useless for you in Thieves Town. There might be an item in there, but even if there is an item in there, it could still be useless, and that's exactly why.
And that's there's the glove.
If you'd left the glove in here, that would be bad news bears. The glove is one of those items that you definitely don't want to put off hoping you find hammer. Because there are a lot more places that we can go look now. For example, all of Lightworld Death Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we'll see.
All right, let's see if McMonkey goes in as well.
You see his teammate in chat is telepathically trying to give him the information. Unless Irritable Penguin has gained some abilities while I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, it looks like those lessons where you should get your money back, Penguin, is not doing it. All is not lost. The other glove could show up, but McMonkey is going to have to go back into Thieves Town. So now the hope really is that a hammer shows up soon enough for McMonkey to consider going back in. It's a decent play to leave those in the back, but in this case, it's not a very good one. Yeah, and Vortex pointing out that unless the hammer and the other glove shows up, there's no way for McMonkey to get back into the Dark World other than the Hyrule Castle portal. Which is it's a pretty. It's basically you're in the situation where you're trying to hope for to skip Aga. You have to hope for 2 items to show up.
Yeah, not an insignificant walk for sure.
Yeah, especially when it's just to re-enter Thieves Town. Fire Rod could lead him back there sooner. Because you will need that to do the back of. Ooh,
there's that hammer.
Step 1.
Okay.
Step 1. So that's again, it's still not ideal that he didn't get the glove the first time through, as Dawn is about to pick up that hammer right now with the glove in hand. So now Dawn can sort of go between Light and Dark World pretty freely. Yeah, it's interesting to note at this point that we do have a fully accessible Swamp Palace. It can be kind of a hard sell to do that dungeon super early. It's kind of a mixed bag, right? Because there's the infamous left side swamp, which is 2 checks that could both be nothing, that take a really long time, but it's the richest dungeon by vanilla item count or item check count in the game, with 6 potentially valuable chests in there. And you don't like to skip all of that just to hopefully, be able to more safely skip the left side. I would say doing it makes more sense than not. You just could get suckered into a pretty big potential time loss.
And yeah, we're seeing chat there. No, Dawn did not skip Stumpkid. Dawn has the hammer as well. I think that this play makes perfect sense for both runners' sides, for McMonkey to commit to doing Swamp now, and for Dawn to not, given the items that they've both found.
Yeah, because McMonkey, to go back, to go between Light World and Dark World, has to do that whole loop all over again, because the doesn't have a glove yet.
Yeah.
So it has to make the most of where he is.
Yep. So we'll see if something interesting is in Swamp Palace. I think a very big find would be Fire Rod, because that opens up Skullwoods, gives another reason to go back into that dark overworld area. We could also potentially see the second glove here, which would lead McMonkey away from Thieves Town for a pretty long time, I think.
Yeah, it's one of the things with skipping an important item. Especially as a spectator, you can think, oh, that's a good find.
There's
up on
the
mountain,
bow.
But you can think that it makes sense for this, like, okay, well, it would be nice to find the other glove, right? But it's actually better if you miss an important item to need that item sooner rather than later. And the longer you go without a glove, the less there is that you can potentially check. And we talk about last locationing an item, it's a lot less punishing when the last location comes sooner. Sooner you run
finding
out of
that flute,
faster you find it.
Finding that flute would also steer McMonkey away from Thieves Town, which is where it'll need to go.
McMonkey fans, let's hope he finds absolutely nothing useful. And Dawn entering the Tower of Hera, sees the map and the cage. It's not ideal. You do like to not see that small key show up early. Okay, so this is a situation where logically you have to go down to the basement to get the big key. We can bypass that with the magic of poor version 1.0 programming, and hookshot into that pot, which is usually a fairy pickup and warps you right to the top. The danger being if there's an item in the big chest, you have to go all the way down to the basement to pick up the big key to get it. And that can be quite a time loss. But in this situation, you do the Harapot and you hope it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm. Boomerang.
Yeah, both runners executing some relatively precise bomb glitches pretty well. Ooh, cold stare, and we do have the Bombus medallion.
There aren't too many bosses that we can't beat right now. Is it just Trinex?
It's just Trinex.
Yep, just Trinex.
And this is actually not the best arena to fight cold stare in, but not the worst. That hole in the middle actually does quite a bit to sort of keep the puffs from getting out of hand.
Yeah, they kind of get clustered together.
The downside being that you can, in fact, get knocked off still. I would say the best boss to have in this location is probably Mothula. The best boss to have in any particular location is pretty much Mothula. And the worst location to have almost any boss in is Mothula.
Mm-hmm. So Dawn does get that green pendant, but I believe this confirms that there is an item in the the Tower of Hera big chest.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but I don't think we'll see Dawn going back in for it right away. It's given the time investment it would take to go for it right now. It's better to hope that it's not something important, because there's too much else that you can do right now. With that bow, we want to go get back to Pod, because in Pod it is actually required. Not for enemies, but for the arrow little Igor statue to get to the boss.
Yep. And now we know where the ice rod is. The ice rod is on the floating island. So we'll need that second glove upgrade before being able to actually grab it, but
that would be a pretty great location for it to be if this wasn't boss shuffle. But ooh, McMonkey finds the flute. That's dangerous.
Yep, that could
be a great item, but it's dangerous because now McMonkey can go do all of this stuff that Dawn is doing. He can do all of it.
Yep.
Dawn is doing it with the glove and lamp. McMonkey can go up there with the flute.
Yep, and then McMonkey will also be able to find that bow, which could bring them into Palace of Darkness, which gets them even farther away from that glove.
Yeah, and we'll see here what we'll get a sneak peek of what McMonkey's going to find after this dungeon. Well, imagine McMonkey comes all this way and it's Trinex down here.
Vitreous.
Oh, we take those. We take those.
Right dungeon to have an iBoss, wrong iBoss.
I mean, how many iBosses are there? It's like 3 of them.
There's a lot. A Link to the Past has a thing with eyes.
in Enemizer boss shuffle, actually a lot of the time Moldorm becomes an iBoss.
Yes, and that's also the first doubled up boss. There are exactly 3 bosses that are doubled up.
Rod.
See the Fire Rod.
That actually could be pretty big here. McMonkey could decide to do an entire other loop while he's still in the Dark World and go do Skull Woods, and then come back and check Thieves Town before doing the flute activation. He doesn't do that though. Well, I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe it's faster to save and quit. Oh yeah, he does, because it's
saving and quitting a sanctuary to activate the flute, I think.
Yeah. It makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay.
If he knew that the glove was there though, then it would be pretty good opportunity to route that in. But given that I'm pretty sure that McMonkey is not clairvoyant, what he's doing makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And the only thing that the mountain really had was bow, which, like I said, is also dangerous because that could bring them into Palace of Darkness beforehand. But at this point, it's becoming increasingly more likely that Palace of Darkness actually has the other glove.
Yeah, it's he did dip Skull Woods. Yeah, like he doesn't have a lot of reasons to just laser back to Thieves Town. It's only 2 items. It just so happens that one of them is something he needs.
And I'm not sure if we saw the item that was in the Thieves Town big chest.
I don't recall if we did.
Yeah, I think
Might have found the second one in Blind Cell.
Yeah, I think that the big chest.
Oh yeah, we didn't have the hammer yet.
Still. Right, we didn't have the hammer, but I think that we hadn't found the second item, which means that there is an item in the Thieves Town big chest, which could be an advantage for McMonkey if it's the Ether Medallion and we end up needing it.
Yeah, so Dawn is about to find the flute and fire rod in here. Oh, this is really rough to decide to leave Thieves Town there. And I suppose I'll say this. McMonkey was thorough earlier on. McMonkey took the extra time, did Zora, did Agina's cave.
That's true.
And so when you do that, you have to keep in mind how many times you're being thorough, how many times you're taking a gamble. Because when you take a gamble, you don't want to make too many gambles, but you also don't want to be too safe. So it's kind of 2 sides of the same coin. So McMonkey might have decided, okay, you know, these 2 items, I feel like I can afford to leave in Thieves Town. I'll just beat the boss and keep going. And it seems like that was a good play because he's finding all sorts of stuff. He just doesn't have a glove. And the longer he goes without a single glove, the more suspicious he's going to get of those checks in Thieves Town. But for now, he's still riding that wave.
In the meantime, Dawn is doing Swamp Palace, going to find that fire rod. And with the knowledge of where the ice rod is, that will actually put all the bosses in completion.
Once we have the mitts.
Once they grab the Titan's mitts, yes.
Yeah. Now we'll see how Dawn does on this diver down. A lot of the I'll say new school runners, less veteran folks are less familiar with the bomb setup and more familiar with the Cane of Samaria one. McMonkey got it rather well. Dawn does just as well himself. So good job on both of them. It pays to practice both strats. You don't always have the cane.
Yep, cane is something we'll be needing as well.
Speaking of bomb strats, we've got both basically the runners swapping places here. McMonkey now doing the bomb setup for the Harapot.
Yep. Also doing Harapot rather than going in for that big key, so
yeah.
We'll see if McMonkey also decides to just abandon that big chest.
Yeah,
at that point, it's
basically any runner. Basically any runner these days does the Harapot if you have the hook shot. It saves a lot of time over doing that tile room in the basement. Now, notably, McMonkey's using a lot more buffering than Dawn ended up doing, but they still gets it on the first try, which is still better than getting it on any other number of tries. So, even though buffering is slower than not buffering it, getting it is faster than not getting it.
Dawn gets the second diver down pretty easy, gets that flute. And now we'll see McMonkey take on Cold Stare.
And see, unlike for McMonkey, that flute is great news for Dawn. Just faster travel around the world, easier cleanup of the checks that might have been missed earlier on in Zora and Gina's cave.
Mm-hmm.
Gives access, well, when we see the myths, gives access to my area. I actually don't think we saw a check of Desert Ledge when McMonkey was in the desert. I think it was strictly the right half of the desert.
Yep. Let's see. We also have magic bat access. We don't have any of the fetch quest items. We don't have the book.
Yeah, McMonkey did do magic bat when activating the flute. It was, if I remember correctly, it was 3 bombs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't think anything too meaningful showed up in on the right side of the mountain here. Just some health, some stuff. Interestingly, we do have 2 out of 3 pendants here.
Mm-hmm. The last one is in Turtle Rock.
Yeah.
We'll take Titan Spitz and Kane at least before they're able to do.
Yeah, so is there really, I suppose Cape could be on pedestal for a required Quake for Misery Mire access. But not looking like there's too much potential for a ped seed. It's numerically it's a non-zero chance, but it doesn't look super likely given that there's a lot that we're gonna need first.
Right. Yep, Cape could be on the pedestal. Kane cannot be on the pedestal.
Ooh.
Oh, there's the book. I don't think McMonkey grabbed that.
Yeah, Monkey didn't go back in for that. The big key was downstairs. So that could be pretty big. That gives access to that desert ledge, whatever that item is. Also lets us check both tablets at this point, since we do have the mirror.
Now we'll get to see what the pet is when they decide to do Skullwoods.
So next time McMonkey decides to gamble on skipping a chest that Dawn hasn't gotten to first, pay attention when Dawn gets there and opens it. It's probably going to be an important item. Because that's 2 for 2 right now.
Yeah. McMonkey not doing a lot of chest skips, but unfortunately the ones that McMonkey did do.
Well, I guess to be fair, 2 for 3. There was one useless chest that he skipped in Thieves Town, but
yeah. All right, so here we're going back to the Dark World. Will this be Palace of Darkness, or will this be back to the area? It's going to be Palace of Darkness first, it looks like. Which is what Dawn is doing right now.
Yeah, and again, this makes sense. It's a full clearable dungeon. You go and do another full clearable dungeon instead of going back to Thieves Town. Right now, the worst thing to show up would be a glove appearing here for McMonkey. Because if McMonkey gets a glove, then that's a whole bunch of other stuff that can be done instead of going back to Thieves Town.
Yep. So it turns out Pod was not bow-locked by logic. And we get the mushroom from Sahasrara, which I don't believe Dawn picked up.
Yeah, Dawn didn't take the opportunity to do that ahead of time here.
Okay. Well, that makes Catfish more exciting, except McMonkey still needs a glove. Not that it's very hard to check the mushroom with having the flute already.
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. That jingle is very different when it skips every other note. Silver showing up is pretty nice though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've seen 2 Viddy fights already, so
we've already beaten all the useful fights for victory for Silvers.
Yeah, it helps a little bit on Argus, it helps a little bit on Helmasaur, but Nothing near the beautiful fight that is Vitreous with Silvers. It seems poetic to me that the silver arrows are best on the boss that's literally just a bunch of eyes. It just feels so video game logic to me, even though in vanilla there's no way you can ever do that because you need to clear Misery Mire before getting them. Yeah, Armos is great with silvers. We do have one of those to see at the very least.
That's true.
Yeah, I believe the way the boss shuffle works, for those not familiar, is all the bosses are shuffled. There are 3 bosses that are randomly selected to appear twice. I don't think it's the full chaos boss shuffle where it's just anything goes with bosses. I have had one of those where I've had just 3 or 4 Vitreous fights before. I don't think that's what we're doing here. It's just the full boss shuffle. So 3 bosses appear twice. So that's all the Vitreous fights we're going to see. Everything else is on the table.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, that does mean there is a very, very low chance that the Ice Rod is not required.
Yes.
If the only Trinex is in the basement of Ganon's Tower, and you don't need to go into the basement of Ganon's Tower to get the big key.
Yeah, in all dungeons, that is the only boss that you potentially never fight.
That being said, we know where the Ice Rod is now, and it's not exactly hard to get when you have all the items for it.
Yeah, and I have seen that seed happen before too, and an all dungeon seed where we never saw Trinex because he was in the basement of GT.
There's that cape.
Ah, yeah. So that's I think that's Ped pretty much dead at this point. Other than Ether,
could be the Ether
guess.
medallion.
Yeah, Ether medallion is the only thing that Ped could Ether medallion or shovel for Ether medallion.
Sure. It cannot be the Ice Rod. The Ice Rod is on the floating island where Lake Hylia is. Or not Lake Hylia. Death Mountain is.
The other floating
There's
island.
the other glove.
Yeah, that's
oh boy.
That's great. That's great for Dawn. That's a great thing to show up there. That death probably feels a little I wish that hadn't happened, but that's a really good position for Dawn to be in. Dawn now is pending medallions in no mode other than the Cane of Samaria. And potentially boots.
And McMonkey just found, and Dawn is about to find the shovel in Harmless Hellway Room.
Yeah, so that Thief Sound skip is looking mighty painful for McMonkey right now.
Sudden influx of fetch quests. The good news is this means that there's a less likely chance that the book that McMonkey skipped will be required.
If the only I'm not sure I'd call that good news. I'd call that a silver lining.
Sure, silver lining. Better news than if that were not true.
Yeah, and Vortex points out in chat, the glove actually doesn't open that much for McMonkey at this point. Earlier, it was kind of a toss-up before the flute showed up because that would have allowed all those mountain checks. Well, now McMonkey's done all those anyway. The good thing is McMonkey is still doing checks, and not all of the items have been located. So there's still the possibility that a hunt ensues and Dawn loses some time. But the fact still remains that McMonkey is going to have to take an unfortunate trip back to Thieves Town. And again, the silver lining there is it can be wrapped in with the trip to Clear Skull Woods. So it's not entirely out of the way.
Mm-hmm. The other silver lining is that when McMonkey does go to the trip in Thieves Town, McMonkey will be able to check the item that's in the big chest, whereas Dawn was not. So if that item happens to be the cane, then it could be interesting.
Yeah, another potential silver lining could be if something important is on the Smith chain, which McMonkey might be a little bit more tempted to do right away after finding those mitts than Dawn will be, given that Dawn will have other things to go and check.
Right.
But all speculation at this point, Dawn heading into the boss of Palace of Darkness.
And the boss is Vanilla, Helmasaur.
Yeah, I almost like wasn't interested, you know, I almost like didn't even notice that there was anything unusual about that.
So if you're Dawn right now, you just found the Titan's Mitts. Where do you go from here?
If it were me, I feel like I would go to Meyer area and check the medallion. Given that the cape showed up and we know where Quake is, I would check Meyer Shed, pick up those 3 items for free. Probably not dive into Meyer even if it were Bombos, and then go up the mountain. Because then you get information on both of the medallions. You know for sure which items you still need to find. Maybe do desert, and then go up the mountain. I wouldn't go straight up the mountain here, but
yeah, I think I would check Meyer Shed first, but then prioritize going to the mountain sooner than later just to pick up that ice rod. Because then you'll know you'll be able to
clearing desert isn't an inevitability without the ice rod.
Yeah, because then you'll at least know.
I personally might still gamble on it because I'm a risky boy, but I would agree that that's the smart play would be to go get the ice rod as soon as you reasonably can. Interesting. Oh, yeah, I guess this is kind of interesting. McMonkey sort of walking, probably to go.
Yeah, McMonkey's
turn in the mushroom and check catfish probably. Otherwise, there would be no reason to go here in the dark world.
Yep, and Dawn is just activating the flute because Dawn hasn't done that yet.
Mm-hmm. Now the good old 07. Let's see, flute to 6. No, flute to 2, mushroom turn in. So
that's fair.
We're gonna see what Dawn is gonna get in just a second. McMonkey's gonna be a little quicker.
A lot of simultaneous checks going on.
Actually, Dawn tied it up. Dawn tied it up with those hookshot strats.
McMonkey favoring the blue potions ahead of the fairies, and yeah, I can say I agree with that.
Fairies are slow and aren't as good.
And it looks like Dawn is going into Ice Palace.
Questionable to go into Ice Palace without the Ice Rod. You don't have that home field advantage. Also, Trinex could be at the bottom, that would be pretty bad, honestly. Ice Palace is the worst dungeon for Trinex to be at the bottom of in this situation.
That'd be a rough fight.
Yeah, as we were talking about desert earlier, but this is much riskier. It's not super high risk because, you know, it very possibly isn't Trinex at the bottom here. But if it is, Ice Palace is one of the longest dungeons to go through, especially without the Cane of Samaria. If you had the Cane of Samaria, it would be like, okay, well, you know, at least it's not that bad. But Dawn's going to be doing Ice Palace Bomb Jump, which, while faster than Vanilla, is still significantly slower. And that's not the Cane of Samaria. So, yeah, Dawn is locked in here.
Yeah, Dawn might be looking to find that cane earlier than later, because if you find the cane, then that could potentially save a mountain climb.
Yeah, it's true. Given that the cane might be go mode, you don't necessarily want to commit to holding off on ice. I still feel like going up the mountain earlier than this would be better, especially because, you know, the ice rod's up there.
Exactly.
And if the cane's up there, you can clear Turtle Rock too. And that's our last pendant, so that would set you up if you needed to go to Ped for Meyer Medallion or something silly like that. I've almost forgotten that this is Enemizer. Not tripping these runners up too much. The early Tempered Sword has really, really helped with that.
Early blue mail, tempered sword, a couple of fairies and bottles, all the bottles accessible. This has been about as benign of a standard Enemizer seed as it could have been.
Yeah, chat's gonna want their money back after this one.
And here we see Dawn doing the bomb jump. McMonkey going into Skullwoods now, having found that fire rod. This makes sense. Hopefully McMonkey will go back and finish up Thieves Town while in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I actually, if McMonkey does do that, and if Dawn, I dare say, if Dawn finds Trinex at the bottom here, McMonkey is in the lead. I'd say that's how bad of a time loss this would be if you get all the way through Ice Palace to find Trinex at the bottom. Because McMonkey is if he goes in and finds that and gets his second glove, that sort of puts him back on track because he hasn't wasted too much time bumbling around. That's sort of been the upside to finding all of that stuff that led him further away from it, is that he's still been getting stuff done that he needs to do. He hasn't lost too much time. Dawn has just been demonstrably ahead in terms of progress.
Yep, and this is one of the arenas that Trinex cannot be found in, so McMonkey definitely will be full clearing this dungeon, pending no disasters.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure an Icebreaker Ice Palace would be full cleared by now, which is if for a point of reference as to how much longer this takes doing it this way.
And
it's
it's
not really
Armos.
based on anything. I'm just guessing. Armos is nice to find here when you have the silvers.
Yep. Can potentially be a rough fight without silvers, without even bow, but fortunately, this is relatively clean. And finds the boots!
Yeah, that's basically best case scenario here for McMonkey. Boots are going to save time on that redip on Thieves Town, which is going to be really nice. But yeah, that's basically best case scenario in this seed for that dungeon. That's a nasty arena. It's basically half of the boss. And
that's also
most bosses are really rough on that arena.
That's also one more thing that is nice to have that cannot be on the tablets anymore, which benefits McMonkey.
And it also could still be hard required for desert, which again would be another reason to not go in full clear desert like I suggested earlier. That's the kind of choice that I would make while racing a seed, and like it wouldn't bite me, and so I'd think it was a good idea.
And there's a second item from Skullwoods, so McMonkey will be heading out of here. Yeah. Nice spin strat to get through the...
Yeah. I guess McMonkey didn't. I thought McMonkey had checked Skullwoods, but apparently not. So yeah, probably going to redip Thieves Town, maybe? Hopefully. Oh, maybe not with those boots. Yeah, you go over and do all this. And because you want to, you want to pick up the medallion just in case.
Yeah. So if you're McMonkey, is there anywhere else to go other than back to Thieves Town after this?
Dark Death Mountain? Well, no, you can't go to Dark Death Mountain.
No, not without the glove.
You can try. Well, you can, but you can only use that portal on the left side, which is not very useful. I would go to Thieves Town before checking just Spike Cave.
Yep, Spike Cave is the only other option. Dawn with a very nice Ice Landmo kill. Fortunately, ends up being Ice Landmo and not Ice Trinex.
Ice Trinex, yeah. So Dawn, still in the lead here. Ice Trinex would have been a huge hit. Because almost all of that would almost certainly have to be done again. An okay gamble to make though. Especially if Dawn is intuiting that we've got, it was a good play to do the rest of Thieves Town.
Yeah. Not sure what McMonkey was doing there. I think they thought they had the Titan's mitts and remembered, oh yeah, that's the problem, before checking King's Tomb.
Yeah, did I didn't quite catch what happened. Did he leave the portal up on Graveyard Ledge?
Yeah, he left the portal behind around where Bomper Cave is.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, so that's I've been guilty of that, of similar mistakes. You know that those checks are logically accessible to you, and you just forget exactly what you need to do to get them.
Yeah, I think now we're seeing the big chest of Swamp Palace, which
not the worst thing to redip. The problem, maybe Pyramid Fairy.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes way more sense than Swamp Big. The problem with redipping Swamp is that you've got to open it up again, which, funnily enough, kind of makes it a better redip in Entrance Randomizer, because it'll stay. Everything is persistent in that regard.
All right, 2 checks that could be the cane.
Yeah, setting up that hook speed for that quick entrance into that pyramid.
No cane, but half magic. We also haven't seen Catfish from either runner. We'll see if McMonkey decides to go Catfish here. And looks like it's the case.
Yeah, with the boots, it's a pretty good shout to do it here.
Yeah.
Especially since you can route it back into. Oh no, he's just going to King's Tomb.
Okay,
makes sense. He's making up for his earlier blunder. Yeah, McMonkey did do Catfish earlier. Yeah, because it was 20 rupees and he mirrored away from it because he did it right after Pod.
Oh, okay.
I think he did.
Not cane. All right. Surely you go back into Thieves now, right?
No, he's got the flute. He's going somewhere else. Maybe desert. No, he's not going to desert.
Spike Cave.
Yeah. Doubling down on didn't need to do Thieves Town. And I get this mentality, right? You're hoping it was the right call to skip him.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with the boots, this isn't the most painful check you can do. With the half magic and the cape, you can sort of dash your way through it. It's not super long, and it pays off really big if this is the other glove,
Yeah.
It actually pays off rather big if it's the cane too. If you find something that Dawn might end up looking quite a bit for.
Right, if this ends up being the cane, Dawn would be likely to do the Smith Chain checks before doing Spike Cave, which would bring them further away. But unfortunately ends up being just 20 rupees. In the meantime, Dawn picks up those boots. And we're now going
blind
to
pull Ped.
Yeah, I could have at least seen what the Ped was, but we know it's not Cane.
Okay, so is Misery Mire Ether? It is not. It
that
is
looked
Quake.
like Quake.
So all we need is the Cane of Samaria, and that is go mode.
We don't know Turtle Rock's medallion yet.
Oh, that's true. We don't. For some reason, I assumed we did, even though that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We don't have the Ice Rod yet.
Yeah, that does officially deconfirm a Ped Seed, though, because we know that Ether can't be on Turtle Rock if Ether is required to open Turtle Rock.
Yeah, we could have... oh, wait, no, we couldn't have. For some reason, I thought that Dawn was... Yeah, Chad was suggesting Dawn was going to check ped, and they meant with the book, and my dumb brain assumed that he was going to blind pull it, because that's way more exciting, and my brain likes to think of exciting things rather than reasonable things. But McMonkey is going in the right direction, so McMonkey fans rejoice. And crucially, Dawn is still hunting for that cane and potentially Ether. So race is not over yet. Race is only over when one runner hits go mode way ahead of the other, and that has not happened yet.
Hey, and even then, with Enemizer shenanigans, you never know what could happen. Someone could get wall mastered right at the end of GT, and just like that, it's wide open again.
Yeah, and given how friendly the opening escape sequence was, it's very possible to have a terrible GT. Seems to always work out that way. I remember my very first Enemizer seed was just a headache in the beginning, but GT was trivial.
All right, McMonkey picking up that glove. Mirrors out.
Not interested in that big chest. I don't blame him. You find those mitts, and that's like, okay, I left that behind for the last hour, basically.
All right, so the cane still could be in the Thieves Town big chest, which would be pretty dicey.
I really can't blame McMonkey for feeling like he's gotta nope out of there. I mean, it would be really logical to go for it. And I really think it would be a good idea. In the overall scope of things, you know, knowing that Dawn hasn't checked that, would have to make a one-off check for it. But on the flip side, that is one more thing that Dawn could have to go back to check that could not be the cane.
Yep. In the meantime, Dawn goes into Desert Palace, also without the Ice Rod, but fortunately doesn't get burned for it. That boss of Desert Palace is also not Trinex. Which means that I think we've narrowed down Trinex's location to either Mire or Vanilla Turtle Rock, or I guess Ganon's Tower basement or midway check.
Yeah, so this is actually kind of nice for McMonkey here, being able to sort of route this in. If McMonkey decides to go into Ice Palace and do that without the cane, that's, you know, sort of back on equalizing that deficit. But if McMonkey decides to go up the mountain first and ends up finding the cane there, that could make up quite a bit of time, because Ice Palace without the cane is comparatively slow.
It's also looking increasingly more likely that the cane is
there's a cane.
Cave. Oh,
so McMonkey's about to find it. That's
all right.
Actually pretty big, because McMonkey can do this right into McMonkey's still behind. Don't get me wrong, but not in a terrible spot. About to pick up the cane, can do Misery Mire right away. Given that it's not Trinex, might go for it, given, again, you're really feeling bad finding mitts that late. Not even finishing. That's a good call. Cover your bases, get that Ice Rod, because while you're up here, you can clear another dungeon. Yeah, and we know that that's going to be a lot of time saved just in Ice Palace alone. Dawn already has the clear, so looks like a dungeon ahead, but it's really more like half a dungeon, because you can save a lot of time with the cane. And now McMonkey is going to be able to see the other medallion, so if this is Ether, McMonkey is going to be able to do a full clear of all of the dungeons from this point forward, including the Ice Palace that Dawn spent so much time on.
Yeah, this This is going to be close.
It's not either, so McMonkey is going to be able to go mode everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really down to if McMonkey can catch up here. McMonkey doesn't have anything up on Dawn right now. But, because again, Dawn only has Misery Mire and the Turtle Rock clear. And really only has to go and, do this, grab the Ice Rod, and is in go mode. Actually and factually.
Yep, doesn't even grab anything in Hookshot Cave. No reason for it.
Wouldn't.
Just grab that Ice Rod and go.
What are you looking for? Red Mail? Butter Sword? Get out of here. You don't get to this spot in the playoffs and need those things. Yeah, so this is going to come down to the GT. It really is at this point. Not a lot of time to be saved in Turtle Rock. And it looks like Dawn is going to do Turtle Rock into Ganon's Tower at the very end.
Makes sense. And you get a full restore right before Ganon's Tower. And McMonkey doing the same play.
Yeah, and you also don't have to waste the transition back to TR. You just flute right after you pick up the Ice Rod, but
yeah. So go mode Mire, go mode Turtle Rock, and McMonkey has a go mode Icebreaker Ice Palace.
Yeah, which isn't the worst. It's a really bad double dip still, but for the clear, it's not that bad. Yeah, so Dawn is still very clearly ahead. It would be insincere to call this anybody's race at this point. It is Dawn's race to lose. But McMonkey is not out of it. McMonkey not with the presence of mind to use the medallion like Dawn did, though.
Unfortunately, not a God Mire, but I guess.
Yeah, it's not going to matter too much at this point in terms of the race.
Yeah.
None of the dungeons that they both have to do really have much that change in the routing with all of the things being equal.
Yeah, the more of each dungeon the runners have to do, the more opportunity McMonkey has to come back. So it being a relatively slow Mire is actually slightly in McMonkey's favor. But that being said, both of the runners' execution has been very top notch. And with the big key being in the vanilla compass chest, they'll be on their way to the boss.
Whoever it may be.
Yep. Alright, so which bosses haven't we seen yet? We haven't seen Trinex,
Argus, Moldorm.
We haven't seen Moldorm.
Who did we see in it was Lanos in Ice Palace, correct?
Yep, Lanmos are in Ice Palace. And Vitreous is doubled up. I think Vitreous is the only one that was doubled up. We haven't seen Blind.
Yeah, we haven't seen Blind. That's I feel there's a joke to be made there, but I can't pull it out.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Did we have? Where was the other almost? I remember the Skullwoods.
Skullwoods and
Desert. Was I not paying attention to Desert?
Yep, it was Desert.
Okay. Yeah, we've seen one Landmo in, so there's one more boss that we're gonna see twice. There's Argus, so, Turtle Rock could be another double. And, then there are 3 more in, Ganon Sour.
Mm-hmm.
Still the possibility open for, the seed where they never had to go up and get that Ice Rod, but it's still a good idea to do so.
And like we were saying, in Enemizer, just having the security that you can beat the bosses at the end of dungeons, I think is worth a lot. Ooh, McMonkey misses the silver hit. Misses it again.
It's actually surprisingly rough to get that hit. You feel like with how deterministic all that stuff is, you think it would be pretty easy to, you just get used to the lag, you know where it's going to go. After playing the game a bunch, you'd be good enough to line up that shot, but it's somehow way trickier than it has any right to be. Yeah, so McMonkey now going to do the back of desert. I think our tracker is slightly inaccurate. McMonkey did the front of desert, but never went to the back. After finding the cane, decided to go get the Ice Rod and then clear Mire. So never did the back, just because it's kind of a formality at this point. Tries to line up the key dash. I appreciate that. I like the attempt there.
Yeah, those Tektites can be... Those red Tektites can be pretty rough in those enemy clear rooms.
Alright, so Dawn heading into his last dungeon here. Yeah, so Turtle Rock would be a pretty fast go mode dungeon were it not for all of those blasted small keys you need. If you needed just a few less, it would be you'd be able to skip all this front section pretty safely and just head straight on down, but you kind of need to check everything just in case you need the small keys. It's possible this is all useless, but
Can be a good go mode in Key Sanity sometimes, but
yeah, it's you literally never never make the gamble that you're not going to need any of these front chests.
Yeah. And there's that big key.
Oh, great. That mirror shield is going to come in handy when they need to check Laser Bridge. Meanwhile, McMonkey loses the shield entirely.
Like can have it, it's fine.
McMonkey has 0 shields now, which is technically good for lag reduction purposes. Not that I don't think that's going to come into play very much for the rest of the run here.
Do you unmark the shield now? Can we get like one of those X's to cover up the shields, similar to how there is for
I think technically he will pick up the mirror shield when he opens that chest, if I'm not mistaken. Ah, killed the wrong enemy. Still killed the wrong enemy.
The Hinox. There you go.
That's one of those rooms where it's kind of tricky. A lot of the other rooms with a set enemy with a key in it, it's always the same enemy, whatever enemy it might be. But in that room in particular, there's enough time, for the enemy movement patterns to throw things off. You never are entirely sure which enemy's where. The Pokey, Vanilla Pokey in particular is... I get why he went for the enemy he did, because that's usually exactly where the Pokey is by the time you get down there.
That spike slider is in a very mean spot.
That is par for the Enemizer course.
Alright. And Dawn finding that small key in Crystal Roller Room means that Dawn will be able to skip Laser Bridge. Which is about as much as you could hope for a Go Mode Turtle Rock.
Yep, has that key in hand, doesn't even need to touch Laser Bridge. That Mirror Shield is nothing but useless lag generation. And I guess protection. It also protects from several forms of damage.
Alright, so nice 2-cycle fight against the Landmolas. And McMonkey is now on his way to Turtle Rock right as Dawn is about to be challenging the boss. And it's blind.
Does he get the script? Low-key worst thing about boss shuffle is no blind one-liner.
That'd be fun. He just gives you... And if there's multiple blinds, then he gives you a different pun for each fight. And with that, Dawn has all the dungeons, even including Aghanim, completed. Just Ganon's Tower and Ganon himself. So we have the big key guessing game going on in chat. Get your guesses in. We'll be looking at Dawn's screen and counting the chests using Dawn's numbers, even if McMonkey enters and takes a different route.
I actually do recall a match where the big key guessing game opened and didn't end for quite some time, as the Cane of Samaria ended up being required, but was not in the hand of either runner at the time. So they had to leave Ganon's Tower and go hunt for the Cane of Samaria. It was a very long big key guessing game.
Brutal.
I believe in particular somebody in chat can tell us more about that, but and there it is. Check number 4, technically.
4. Yep. And also has both small keys, so doesn't even need to kill what would be the mini Helmasaur on the way up. And is Dawn grabbing that Ether Medallion?
Yeah, I get it. Can help clear out some rooms, and it's faster than Bombos.
All right.
In a race situation like this, you never know when the few seconds it takes to clear a really nasty room with Ether. Overdoing it with Bombos is going to make a difference in the final time. So, see, this is one of those rooms where I think he would have liked to use Ether, but doesn't quite get there. Or maybe Ether doesn't kill some.
Yeah,
I'm actually not up on my medallion rules. Runners with more game knowledge than I. A dime a dozen, I say.
Alright, that shadow in this room giving Dawn a little bit of a rough time. Let's see if McMonkey also last enemy defeats that Hinox.
Does it a little faster. Yeah, but in all honesty, Dawn is going to have to make some lose some pretty major time in this GT climb. 2 bosses away from the final boss fights, as you could call them. And those 2 will be vanilla. But so far, we haven't seen Trinex. We haven't seen. We've seen everything else actually, other than Trinex.
Mm-hmm.
So you got 1 repeat in the pool and 1 no peat in the pool. Oh, well, no, we hadn't seen this fella yet.
There's our Moldarm. Which means that Trinex is confirmed to be in the basement of Ganon's Tower.
It could be at the top. Oh, no. He can't be in the top.
Yeah, not enough room for him.
You'd think there would be.
This is the very rare Ice Rod not required seed, but we have the Ice Rod anyway.
Yeah, there still isn't a world where you don't pick up that Ice Rod when they did.
Exactly. Even arguably before they did.
Yeah, but I mean, like, at that point, once you hit go mode, you make it go mode. You don't want to be coming back to any of these dungeons. And we see blind another time. We don't get a second one-liner. We actually get a second lack of a one-liner. Actually, no, that's not the second one. I got confused. That's McMonkey fighting that same blind.
Yeah, blind still can't see. Still is averse to bright light, which is probably why blind's hiding out in Turtle Rock, which is more cavernous. In the meantime, Dawn is very nearly finished with this Ganon's Tower climb.
Yeah, probably going to be a clean Ganon's Tower climb ahead. So this is going to be a very difficult time. So yeah, we do have a vanilla-ish 3-eyed
Moldarm. And that was our last double.
Not opening the chest, SMH. Yeah, put that cape on, not even a wall master can stop you now. We've just got 2 boss fights, and we do have the silvers, so there's not a lot to happen here for Dawn, so, you know, at risk of premature celebration here, GG's to Dawn here. It's generally bad form to prematurely celebrate, but this is it's a lot of time for McMonkey to make up here.
Mm-hmm.
Especially going here into tile room.
Yeah, McMonkey also going the.
He's not checking it.
Side.
That would have at least made me happy.
Well, let's see if Ganon was hiding the red mail. That Hinox getting in the way of the shot, but McMonkey still manages it fine. Just a bunch of junk on the right side. And with that, McMonkey finds that big key. We'll be heading up the tower. Dawn enters phase 3 of this Ganon fight. It would take several falls for McMonkey to come back at this point, but it's never over till it's over. Gets a double right on the first go around. And with that, a very nice Ganon fight. Get your GGs in the chat for Dawn.
And that is going to give us our official race time of 1 hour, 44 minutes, and 56 seconds.
Yes. Well sub 2 hour seed with boots showing up as late as they did. That is a fantastic time.
As we get to enjoy the garbled credit sequence, the sprite sheets are not what they appear to be, but we have joining us in chat here. We have Dawnvenure. Am I saying that correctly? I feel like that's almost insulting if it's wrong because it sounds like manure. But GG's.
I don't even know how to pronounce it. I just go off what other people say.
But yeah, that was a well-earned win. Well played throughout. A couple of spooky moments. But before we get into any of those, is there anything you want to remark upon?
I was trying to like think back. It's like what happened in the seed, and honestly, like my brain was just so focused that I actually don't remember what happened. Like where I found one item, where I found the next item. The only thing I know was that it was an Aegis seed. Probably it was an Aegis seed.
Yeah, that was kind of the
dungeon is always Aegis seed.
Yeah, it was kind of the most interesting thing early is just that lamp showing up before either glove or hammer, and it's like, well, you know what we're in for here, right?
Like it was only kind of spooky, like going Aegis so early because it did give mirror and give the hook shot, but other than that, like you had to do Ega anyway, so I didn't even feel like not farming up rupees for Zora. Or I know McMonkey likes to go to Aegina's cave really early. Other than that, like I said, I don't really remember anything about this scene.
Yeah, Randomizer kind of has a tendency to do that to you too. You know, you're sort of on your toes the entire time. You know, it's just the whole idea of rando, right? Is, you know, well, the items aren't where they used to be. Well, when you add that to the entire gameplay, where the enemies aren't where they're supposed to be, you know, it's a constantly disorienting experience.
I love Randomizer. I think one, it just makes the game more fresh, just having different enemies and places, and it turns every room into a puzzle when you're at low health. But then at some point, like, obviously we got blue mail super early. I never found red mail, but
yeah,
still finding blue mail early in a ton of parts, you really don't have to fear anything. It just really does turn into a how do you solve this room puzzle without having to worry about your health. Especially when we found 4 bottles super early, and I filled 3 of them up with fairies.
Yeah, Enemizer definitely forces you to have to mix up your strats for each individual room. In ways that can sometimes be very compelling and sometimes be very, very unforgiving. But I think that the curveballs that it threw at you this time, you were both able to manage very well, safeties notwithstanding.
Yeah, none of the super unfortunate enemy placements. Everything was in manageable spots. I would say it was pretty manageable. Not free, but manageable.
Yeah, and right as I say that, McMonkey just uses the cape to nope out of that final room of Ganon's Tower, guarded by 2 chain chomps, a fire bar. I think there was a roller in there. Not a pleasant one.
You always got to use like cape in that room. If there's a wall master in there and you're not dashing with the cape, you get hit once, the wall master comes down, and you got to do the whole gauntlet all over again with less safeties. So yeah, you always got to use cape in that room.
Wholeheartedly agree. The very beginning, given that this is standard mode, can also be very unforgiving. But the two of you fortunately managed to both navigate it very well. Got a little bit dicey, Dawn, when you were on that half a heart.
You know, like I played well. Yeah. I did a little bit of research on McMonkey. Obviously, you gotta want to research your opponents. And I saw on ladder and whatnot, he was very comfortable using like open boots, standard boot, or casual boots, open. He doesn't really go to the norm, and he didn't play Mystery Week, so I felt like he was either like this is really expected what he's gonna pick. He picked standard, which actually let me open up with the full Enemizer to get him really out of his comfort zone, and then you're forced to do the escape. So that I think that played out for me to just being more comfortable with Enemizer than he is.
Yeah, it really didn't seem to trip either of you up in particular all that much. One thing that I definitely did notice though was that first I guess second room in Misery Mire, you went straight to that medallion and cleared it that way. McMonkey sort of fumbled around slashing at the shades there. So I wanted to highlight that a little bit. That's some heads up Enemizer strats there.
Yeah, you always got to have a medallion going in there, so using it to clear that second room is very good.
And likewise, picking up the Ether Medallion before the climb is also pretty heads up. So yeah, I definitely think it showed that that you have that familiarity with the format.
So one thing that I was wondering about, you saw the ice rod sitting atop Lake Hylia, or not Lake Hylia Island, Floating Island. Once you grab the Titan's Mitts, I think it was Ice Palace, the first dungeon that you went to?
So I honestly, one of the things I was doing was like, I don't know what dungeons Trinix can be at. I don't think it can be at ice. Like it definitely probably can, but yeah, I went in there, and like the second thing that spooked me about going in there wasn't just, is there a Trinix here? It was, what if I can't do the bomb jump and I don't have Canis Samaria and it's Canis Samaria locked? So that was like the riskiest play of the whole seed for me, was going into ice so early.
Yeah. And also we get the GG on McMonkey's side as well. So congratulations to both of you for a fantastic race.
Yeah,
all dungeons.
Get it on the record. McMonkey's final time officially is 1 hour 52 minutes and 4 seconds. So that is about 7 minutes, give or take, behind. Which, considering, which we'll get into later when we pull him in for the interview, is not too shabby. So yeah, good GGs to both of you.
McMonkey actually won't be joining us for the interview, so we can.
That's understandable. So yeah, I think we'll let his secret lie here. I suppose he'll talk to you about it, Dawn, if he likes to, but I won't spill the beans on it.
But yeah, we were speculating about where Trinix was going to be, and then turns out the Ice Rod wasn't even required anyway, with the only Trinix in the game being in the not required basement of Ganon's Tower.
I was so mad. Like I saw that there for so long. It's like, when is the best time to get this? And I obviously got it right after getting Kane Samaria, just so to make sure I'm in go mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were wondering if you were holding out on it and waiting for Kane to Samaria, because I think that would have potentially been able to save you a mountain trip. Unfortunately, since the Kane ended up being in desert, the front side of desert anyway, that worked out.
Well, yeah, that's so that's gonna be your team advancing on in the tournament. So how does that feel? How do you feel going forward?
It feels really good. We when this divisions were revealed, is that what it is? Each division, we felt like we were in like one of the toughest divisions for Open League, and then like finishing that at the top, finishing the division finals, the round before this 3-0, and then going 3-1 in this, it feels really good, really confident going forward. We made invitationals, which is honestly probably what everyone was kind of hoping for if they weren't hoping to make top 2. So it's really awesome. We're going to be able to show up next season in the invitational. And I'm hoping for the OK game to advance and we face them in the finals, get the OK Boomer finals.
Worth it just for the joke.
Rigged. It's all rigged. But yeah, so if that's if we don't have any other final thoughts, I think that'll do it for us. It was a good race. Unfortunate end for the new Hyrule Order, but definitely not a disappointing showing. Everybody on both teams has been playing strong all season, and it's just the way the rando cookie crumbles sometimes, huh?
Yeah, sometimes you just get randoed.
Yeah, so coming up, we do have some more Randomizer League for y'all. We've got, on the Invitational League, we've got a match on Thursday night. But before then, we have another one. Yeah, we have some races on Thursday for the Open League 2. One Thursday afternoon, 2 Thursday afternoon, I guess. Second one's at 2:10 Eastern, and then one Thursday night. So be sure to tune back in then.
Yeah, Thursday's looking to be a pretty good day for A Link to the Past randomizer.
Yeah, nothing overlapping either. You know, you've got a 12:10, a 2:10, a 4:10, and a 6:10. So unless any of the races run long, you could easily spend the entire second half of that day just watching games. So I think that'll do it for us. So unless you have any last words, Danny?
Nope. GG, all good games, and it was a pleasure to commentate this one with you, Esmar.
Likewise. And we'll see you all next time.